Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. You know, the Biden thing is it's really an interesting twist. Like I said in my last video, like I didn't really want to really cover the election so much. It was just the same old thing over again. Trump versus Biden too, but not like the rematch that everybody wanted. Like nobody wants the rematch, and no matter who wins, it's a nightmare. So there's that in multiple ways. In different ways for both candidates. But this thing with him going senile right now is great. It's amazing. It's one of the best things that happened to all of us in the truth community. Before I get into it, let me just say this. I have to remind myself. My channel, this channel's doing a lot better. My other channel, I have to maybe do some. I chatted with those YouTube bots, and they said, "Hey, we're not shadow banning you." And then all of a sudden, I'm getting a lot more views, and I have people who haven't seen my channel in 2, 3 years all of a sudden getting recommended videos and saying, "Oh yeah, I forgot about you." These things, right? I mean, so many comments like that, hundreds of them, and probably lots of other people. So all of a sudden, YouTube is, less shadow banning me, but it's still struggling. YouTube's a dying platform, and I'm just not making enough money to continue. But it's been helpful with the more views now. So YouTube is notifying people about my videos again, my subscribers. So if you remember, hit the subscribe button because YouTube unsubscribes you, and then hit the notification button. Two of them. I think the bell is whatever it is. You guys probably know what it is. As well as liking the videos is important, leaving comments, whatever the algorithms need to know that you're engaged with the channel, and then bookmark the channel in case, when YouTube inevitably stops doing what they're doing now and goes back to what they were doing before. So I just want to remind everybody of that. And with that, a big part of this thing is being right. I was going to talk about this at the end of the last video. But personally, in terms of the many things that I've talked about here, my percentage rate, I don't want to call them predictions, but some of them are, professorial, but some of them just reading of situations, reading of people. And the one where I said Joe Biden's got dementia in 2019, I wasn't the only person to say that, but it was easy to see. Like he's just, I mean, like it wasn't hard to see. He had all these moments where he was breaking down mentally because of his age. Like it was clear he was gotten old, and they're showing pictures of him now between the time 4 years ago and now, and to see the deterioration. They're also showing video clips of him now and then, but he was already going then. Like so, he was old then. Now he looks better then. Of course he does. 4 years ago, after your presidency, you age like twice as much. So it's like you age 8 to 10 years in 4 years or whatever it is, right? But like he looks better then, but he was bad then. That shows you how bad it was, and that inevitably they were going to have to start saying the things that I was saying and other people in the truth community are saying, were saying back then. We've been saying this for years, and I knew this day was going to come because it was inevitable. Like he has the best health care, which I said in my last video, and the best team, but you can't prevent something like that from happening because it's the deterioration of your physical body, and your mental state goes with it, and it happens when you get old, right? It happens to most old people, and if you're put in pressure situations, like when you drive at night, it's harder as you get older, right? When you're younger, whatever it is, there's a lack of your senses aren't the same, and you have issues with things where that if you're put in a pressure situation, you're older, you just get confused, and he's in pressure situations all the time. And so now they're finally admitting, which we're going to get to, the Democratic people around him as handlers and people around him, or people who had access to this, this disaster. They're admitting, which I'll show you the video. It's like 3 videos into this thing, that he was, he was being handled in a way, and he couldn't handle much in terms of external stimulation. He's going to make an excuse here about being fatigued and jet lag, which is part of his job. Which means you can't do your job then because that's president. Like you're doing a job that takes really somebody in their 50s or 60s, 40s, maybe, hopefully. Somebody who's mature and wise enough to do the job, but not, not so immature that they, do something stupid because you're a dummy until a certain age, and then you're getting old. Like you got this window between the ages of like your late 30s, early 40s, until your mid 60s or 70, whatever it is, early 70s at best, where you're wise but you still have the physical strength to do the job. You have some wisdom. You're not as emotional. You're not as impulsive. I mean, hopefully, like there's a small window where being the president would be sort of the ideal age, and he's well past that, right? He's well past. The average person dies when they're 76. He's 5 years past when the average death age is. Never mind retirement, which is what 64 or whatever I said in that earlier video. And so, this is what happens for us in the truth community because we can talk the truth, right? They're now talking about Kamala Harris all of a sudden. And that, I was surprised they're going right for her. But she came out and just lied to the American people about what they saw, about the debate, right? Because she had to. That's what it was, not that she's not willing liar, but she had to. And it's just all these news pundits aren't allowed to say things, right? We could all see the guy. You looked at the guy and you were like, this guy's too old to be president. And that was 2019, and now so many years later, here it is, right? It's like finally here where they can't deny it. And it just sucks how bad they deny everything in reality and how much easier it is to be somebody like me on the internet and just be able to say, hey, this is what I see. Because you don't have to go through a series of handlers. I mean, of course, now on YouTube, they have their own levels of censorship. There's things you can't say. Like there's protected, the medical misinformation was a big new thing, all these things. But in reality though, like there's nobody here to tell me don't say that, right? Or you can't say that, right? And that's and that's the majority of the news media. And then all the the very narrow bandwidth of reality that they're allowed to talk to, their their warped reality, their misinformation, these other things, their talking points, and all the rest of it. So it's nice to see it crumble. And so let's get into it because there's a great video clips here. Okay, so let's start here. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Green. I want to go back to that question that Pelosi raised earlier today. Sure. Pelosi said it's a legitimate question to ask if this is an episode or this is a condition. Which one is it?
Well, what I can tell you is that he had a cold and a bad night. I would not see this as an episode. I would see this as what it was and what we believe it to be, which is it was a bad night. And he did, on top of that, he had a cold. And that is...
Oh, crazy. He had a bad night and a cold? No, he overperformed. Wait, he had a bad night and a cold? Well, that explains everything. He did great. We should be applauding him. What a trooper. He had a cold and a bad night at the same time.
The reality of the situation. That is the reality of what happened that night.
You've certainly seen the reporting out there that this is not just a standalone instance, that other people are saying that this has happened before. One, do you see these as legitimate questions? And also, are you being straight with the American people on this?
I see it as...
Are you being straight with the American people? You mean you liar pieces of crap?
I see it as a legitimate question. I do. And I have said it is a fair question to ask. The president sees it as a legitimate question. And I
Okay, so we're going to come back to that, right? So she's saying it's a legitimate question to ask if he's, senile.
I think also the president saying, I am not a young man. I'm not as a smooth talker as I used to be. I don't walk as easily as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. I mean, the president is admitting and saying, and this is not the first time, right? He's talked about his age. He's joked about his age many times before. And so you heard that directly from, and we are acknowledging what people are seeing. But we do believe this was in this instance, it was a bad night.
Is he disabled?
No, and let me finish with your colleague, please. And I know, but shouting out, come on,
Come on, you guys, with your shouting out. I'm going to have a bad night. And I'm going to get cold. I won't be able to respond to you. So there's more. We're going to go back. There's other little highlights of the press conference. But the idea that it's a fair question, does he have dementia, right, basically? That's a fair question. Like, if somebody says, are you stupid, right? Is that a fair question? Well, if you're kind of stupid, right? What is he? He's dementia. He's senile adjacent, right? Because if it's a fair question, then the people are seeing evidence that would support that question, right? It's kind of like asking a porn star if you're dating a porn star and they're cheating on you. I watched a little bit of the Stormy Daniels thing with Rachel Maddow, and she was crying almost. Hard times for Stormy. And Rachel Maddow was trying to comfort her and hugged her at the end of it. I just saw the kind of end. And it was hilarious. If I can find the clip, I'll show it to you. I looked and they didn't have the ending where Rachel Maddow's like kind of almost trying to hug her. It was weird. But anyways, if you were dating a porn star and you say, hey, are you cheating on me? Well, that's a fair question. I'm just doing my job. It's not really cheating, like that, right? You ask a sumo wrestler, are you obese? Well, that's a fair question. That's a fair question. I'm just doing my job, right? Like, Biden, if you're asking somebody if they're senile, and it's a fair question, then they're pretty much close to being senile. There's some kind of thing going on, right? It's the beginning process. And so when you see a performance like this, being a president's part of it is a confidence game. That you have confidence. The president comes out and, says things and acts in a certain way that you're supposed to have confidence in their ability to do the job and that everything's fine, right? The state of our union is strong. That's what they always say when they do the State of Union address, right? Like whatever's going on, they're there to say, hey, don't panic, right? That's one of the big jobs. I mean, you see it in movies. A meteor is about to hit the Earth. Oh, everything's fine. Don't panic. That's his freaking job, right? Oh, the aliens are invading. No, we got this, right? And the president's whole thing, we got this. Some kind of, the goofy, the annoying saying, I got this, right? It's stupid, but that's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do. We're going to get it done. Don't worry. You go back and do your wage slave jobs and don't, go to the bank and withdraw all your money. Don't get your guns out and, whatever, just, we got this, right? Just stay calm. Like that's what the president's job is, like a big part of it. Like to avoid panic, right? Panic always makes the situation worse. And when the mob turns into a panic mob, the only time we saw the opposite of this was with COVID when they said, oh yeah, panic. Oh yeah, COVID's way worse than it, than we're saying it is. Or it's way worse than than you even think. And so panic, right? That was the one time we saw, let's close down the economy. Other than that, it's like, oh, go out there and just do everything. Just, you guys stay in your lane, do your thing, and we'll take care of whatever else is going on here. That's what the president's job is mostly to do. To get in front of the microphone and to establish confidence. And so Biden couldn't do that in the debate, and now, he's senile, and it's there for everyone to see. That's a fair question. It's a fair question. Okay, so I talked about this earlier, maybe later in this video, but I want to say something here, just in case I don't cover it. Today's Wednesday, July 3rd. I'm editing this process. All the stuff that you've just seen and what you're about to see, most of it's coming from Tuesday. But I also just got some clips from CNN. Every day it gets worse for Biden. So I'm going to post those clips. And then I'm going to, towards the end of the video, I'll probably put this up on the 5th. So I'll have all day on the 4th, which of course there'll be less news about this. And then on the 5th, they'll probably be thinking about getting rid of the guy. So I'll have all that stuff here. I'll release this on the 5th. It's it's all fluid, right? But again, some of the stuff is going to be older. I have another video that I was supposed to put up a week ago, but it's gotten backed up. So that's going to come out. People are going to be like, well, this has old news in it. I'm like, yeah, but it still has good stuff in it. Because I had to, I couldn't release it because there's other videos that were popping on my channel, so I had to wait. And then this whole thing happened with Biden. But anyways, I'm just kind of covering this and documenting it chronologically. And so the beginning of the videos are going to be about things that happened maybe a couple of days ago when you're watching this. And then I'm going to move forward with how this progressed. It's kind of an interesting way to do it, right? Because you get to see almost a time-lapse type of situation here. But anyways, let's get back into it here.
The statement that Congressman Doug had put out,
Yeah.
does the president feel like members, the Democratic congressmen, should be able to speak their minds on this? Or does he think, calling for him to withdraw is hurting the party writ large?
I mean, look, that's something about the Democratic Party that we really respect. It is a big tent party. Many people are going to have their opinions. We are going to have our disagreements, and that is what is important.
So your disagreements are whether he's freaking senile or not, right? He's unfit to serve. I wanted to say this in the introduction, and I forgot. We've reached a point here where we know two things. The first thing is that there's no apparatus that we have in place where a guy shows that he's obviously senile, a president, or her, in the case may be, possibly even soon, that the president is showing signs of not being able to do the job, that they're senile and mentally breaking down, which of course is going to always be a thing. And maybe they have cancer, maybe they have something else. Like there's debilitating possibilities, right? And we've had that, with Roosevelt, I believe, who was in a wheelchair. One of them, right? Somebody was in a wheelchair, broke down, polio or some shit like that, right? So, and we had Reagan, who had dementia and was senile. He had Alzheimer's. And so his last 2 years. So a president can show everybody he's unfit. That was an unfit man, right? He would have been fired. Like the performance on Thursday, he would have came in Monday and not had a job. And there would have been concern about him, right? Like, it wouldn't even be about like, oh, we're firing you because you didn't perform. It'd be like some sense of concern. Are you okay, right? Like, this is more important than your job. At least, I mean, the presidency is, whatever it is, but, just a joke. But we can't have you do that. So there would have been something, right? There would have been some apparatus to say, all right, he can't do the job, right? So that's number one. That the American, people or the media is saying he's unfit to run for president, but the American people are saying he's unfit to be president, right? And so they're not even talking about him stepping down from presidency. Like he's going to be the president till January, despite being unfit, because he's about to say he's unfit, and they're going to, it looks like it's heading towards that situation where he's going to be forced out of the election. And yet he's still going to be president. So think about that for a little bit. So that's the first thing. I've forgotten the second thing. Maybe I'm unfit. Let's keep on going here.
And we really respect other people's opinions and thoughts. I think that's what makes, this party different, right, than the other side. Certainly we see that with how it's playing out in Congress, or how it tends to play out in Congress. So the congressman is going to have his opinion. He's going to have his thoughts. That's for him to speak to. We are not, this is not a president that's about his personal politics. That is not this president is all about. He doesn't care only about himself. That is not what this president is all about.
He totally cares only about himself, right? Because all these things that he said he wanted to run to serve, and the whole thing that happened in Charlottesville, like right now he's hurting the party, and they should have done this in February. Like they're saying you can't speak out, but another thing that they did is Biden pressured the social media companies and said he was going to withdraw. They have a like something that's in place for them where they can't be sued for content that's put up by private individuals, which is the only reason they're able to operate. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, like, all these things. It's the only TikTok. And so if you take that away, they'd have to close down, because then they'd have to go through all their content and get rid of content that they'd have some legal liability for. And so, think about all those things where there's, they're posting these, YouTube got rid of those things, but like those challenges and things that were dangerous and whatever it is, right? But there's all these things that allow social media to operate without being responsible for the content that's put on their platform. Biden threatened to remove that if he didn't get to censor them. They ruled against him, right? And, this is the kind of censorship that's going on from their side. I mean, of course, Trump is the nightmare in his own way. A personal censorship and just, attacking anybody who criticizes all the things he does. So they're both going to a totalitarian type of situation, right? But to say that there's, like everybody knew about this within the White House, which is coming out now. I'll show you those clips in a second.
And I also read out some supportive statements that we've heard from leaders of Congress. Former Speaker Pelosi.
Okay, she sucks.
Released a 6-page summary back in February. I don't think that was a full accounting necessarily. And Dr. O'Connor in that memo described the president as, quote, a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male who remains fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. I think that is clearly not what the majority of Americans are seeing. And we have a new poll from CBS News that says 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word?
So a couple of things, and I want to say the president is feeling better, and you saw him last night, you saw him today, but he does indeed still have a cold. Look,
He's got a cold. He's got a dementia cold. It makes him not be able to complete a sentence and stare blindly and wildly, not blindly, crazily at his opponent with his mouth agape. Right?
I want to be very sensitive here, and I think it is important to be sensitive here. We
Let's be sensitive because this is important, right?
understand how the American people are feeling. We get it. We do.
We get it. We get it. We do get it. We're sensitive.
And I do not want to take away from that.
We don't want to take away from their feeling that their president is unfit to serve. You can feel that way. You have your feelings. Be in your feelings about it. Almost 3/4 of you guys think that this guy's too old. And you felt like this in February, and then January and February. And now, again, you feel the same way, even more so because he just showed you that he can't do his job. He can't even walk and talk and do things like, an adult person's supposed to do. He shouldn't have any job. But yeah, you feel that way. Go ahead and feel that way all you want. Feel your feelings.
I'm not going to speak. I know that there was, you all did a poll, CNN did a poll. I'm not going to speak to every poll. I'm just not going to do that.
Why would I do something as crazy as talking about what the American people feel about their president's senility?
Also, I'm constraints in doing that as we're heading into an election in November, as you know. What I will say is majority of Americans also support the work that the president has doing in a sense of his agenda and what he stands for, what he's been fighting for, whether it's reproductive rights.
So it's about his thing. And, the other guy's a liar. So, I will talk about that. But I can't talk about the polls that say this guy should go right now because he's mentally incompetent. I'm going to talk about how he pooped his diaper on the debate stage and, when he's going to D-Day. I won't talk about any of those things. I can't. That's just, that would be wrong to do those things.
You just reminded us that President Biden... Thank you, Corinne. You just reminded us that President Biden had a cold on Thursday. What medications was he taking in the days or hours leading up to the debate?
And I know that...
He smoked some crack with his son Hunter. Like they were crack buddies for a while, and they smoked a little crack. Maybe that would explain his performance. He was on crack as well.
That question has come in a couple of times to us. He was not taking any cold medication.
What do you mean? He was... No, he's not even NyQuil?
Was he taking any medication that would have interfered with his
He
performance?
was not taking any cold medication. That is what I can speak to.
So he's taking other medication. So what can't you speak of? What medication is he on that you guys expect him to do better, like Adderall, but it didn't work?
Asked his doctor, and that's what he stated to us.
After the debate, did the president get examined by a doctor, or did he get a neurological
Did he get examined by the doctor? Did the doctor examine him? Like, what? There's Stormy Daniels.
A neurological scan? Look, what I can say is that, just to take a step back, it was a bad night. We understand
Bad night.
that it was a bad night. And the president has spoken to this. And he understands that. And so
He understands. He didn't at first because he's a little bit confused, like you guys all saw it. But like after a couple of days, he understood that he shit the bed out there.
I cannot speak to anything beyond what I just shared. The president has regular annual physicals that we release in a thorough report.
You know, by doctors who like are completely uncompromised and would never lie about the mental state of a president who we've been covering for it. And, you know, he has got to go sleep by 4 p.m., you know, the early bird special.
We're going to continue to do that. I don't have anything else beyond that.
So was the last time he was seen by a doctor then in February?
I just don't have anything beyond that, beyond the question of a neurological exam.
Okay, well, you continue to say it was just a bad night, but is there an explanation then for why it was so bad? If it's not his stamina, if he prepared, as you guys say, for so long, if it's not a problem with his mental fitness, what happened that night? What did we see?
I will also add that the president also spoke to this as well. He said, I'm not as smooth as I used to be. I don't
Okay.
debate as well as I used to. I don't walk as easily as I used to. But one thing that he knows is how to deliver for the American people. He understands that. He understands that he's not a young man, obviously.
He's obviously not a young man at all. He's not a young man. He's not young.
He said this. But his focus is going to continue to deliver for the American people on the issues that they care about.
Exactly. His focus is there.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not.
Given the fact that it's more than a bad night when his political future is threatened, would he be willing to provide more medical information? Would he be willing to have Dr. O'Connor provide more to answer these questions?
Dr. O'Connor is dead. Dr. Connor's not available for any comment.
Look, Kelly-O, certainly understand the question.
Kelly-O. All right, so she sucks. In line, of course they hit it. Like it's, you know, American people saw that he was senile back in February. We saw it back in 2019, and we've seen it all along. And they've been hiding it. They hit it last time he was campaigning, you know, and during the COVID years where he campaigned, he sat out in a car, and they had all these people social distance in cars. They were trying to hide his inability to campaign, the rigors of campaigning. That's in 2020. And, of course, he can't even do it now. Like, he's even worse. And so, you know, they were hiding that. They were also hiding that he had no enthusiasm, that he didn't have enough people to make it look like he could generate enough votes to win. Because he couldn't generate, like, you know, thousands of people. He could get hundreds of people with poor, low enthusiasm. And now even worse, right? So, like, they were hiding him. They've been hiding the guy the whole time.
In our 2024 lead, former Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan ran against President Biden in 2020 for the Democratic presidential nomination. He endorsed Biden after dropping out of the race. But in a new op-ed, Congressman Ryan writes, quote, "Witnessing Joe Biden's struggle was heartbreaking, and we must forge a new path forward. After deep reflection over these past few days, I strongly believe that our best path forward is Kamala Harris, the vice president." Tim Ryan joins me now. Congressman, thanks for joining us. So what is the response you're getting now that you put this out? Because obviously, I wouldn't exactly say a lot of Democrats are being as forthcoming with their views on this issue publicly as they are privately.
Yeah, I mean, overwhelming, Jake. My phone blew up this morning, and all day long I've been doing calls and doing media, and former colleagues have been reaching out just saying thank you. I think somebody had to do something. Like, we had to break the logjam here, and I just think that Kamala is the person. It's the cleanest way. She's a seasoned.
So my wife sent me this, I think, yesterday. This clip is from yesterday. So this was from Tuesday, and now we have things drip coming. You know, it's just a slow drip of erosion for Joe Biden. There's Kamala Kneepad Harris. Who, she's taking it for the team, and she's supporting Joe, up until the point it's her turn, which is, getting closer and closer.
Campaigner now, 3.5 years of experience. And so I think people would be very, very excited, and I think she'd be good for down ballot races and energize our base. So to me, it's pretty straightforward, but the fact that no one said it, I think, was holding back, and now it seems like the dam's breaking.
You say the Democrats have to rip the Band-Aid off because too much is at stake. Why do you think Harris is the best choice to replace Biden beyond what you said about her being a seasoned politician? Obviously, she's the vice president as well. But beyond that, you think that she would do a better job of winning than some of the other? I mean, to be honest, you have a big bench, Democrats. Why her and not Whitmer or Newsom or Shapiro or anyone?
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of talent, and that's very fortunate, and some great governors.
Did he just say they have a lot of talent? They are, it's all a nightmare. The Republicans don't have any talent either, right? In terms of people who will have enthusiasm behind them, we've had in the last couple of years Bernie Sanders, who had a energized fan base, and Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump was so polarizing. Bernie Sanders had a very limited, enthusiastic base that could only grow to about 30%. And, maybe a few stragglers in if he was running against Trump. But Bernie Sanders, being a socialist, had no chance of winning. And so these are the most extremists, Bernie Sanders and Trump, right? Trump's not really extremist, but he's considered that by the right wing. He panders to an extreme audience. But the rest of these guys and women, they're just too middle of the road, right? Any of them who have a chance of winning the nomination on the Democratic side, they're not liberals, they're just goofy, like they're just, centrists and really bad people, like just with the Republicans too. Like there's nothing good about them. They're not people that you would follow if you had a chance. Like if there's a group of people on an island, you wouldn't follow these guys, right? They're not, true leaders or anything like that. They're just successful politicians, and it's just a bunch of lowlifes that, are very unlikable. And, people think they have to vote for somebody, so they pick somebody, they pick a party, they pick a person, right? Because you have to vote, right? Don't you have to vote? I got to vote, right? I got to vote, right? I guess, well, I got to vote. I got to exercise my vote. I can vote, so I might as well vote.
I think, we talk about President Biden's administration being the most successful administration in modern history. We brag about that. She was in the room. She was right there. 3.5 years, went through the campaign with them. All the things that we're going to talk about, the Inflation Reduction Act, infrastructure, the CHIPS Act, actually reindustrializing the country. I think she would be able to talk about that much clearer than the president would be able to. The choice issue is going to be huge in this election.
So is Kamala capable of getting the amount of vote that Joe is? So let's say she's able to get more people of color, get more, Indian Asian vote out because she's part Indian Asian, and maybe, a little bit better with women. I don't know. I don't know how many women weren't voting for Joe Biden. And so maybe a little bit more of the youth because of, she's younger. But there's people, cross-sectional people who are like considered soft Republicans, anti-Trump Republicans, and people who are independents that liked Biden, right? It's difficult for a woman. And until we see one elected, it's always going to be difficult because of, whatever's going on with people's, even women are different. Women are harder on other women than men are harder on men. They're more critical, more competitive. And then especially women on the left, not so much with Christian right-wing women. I mean, they can be pretty brutal themselves, but the feminists are very brutal with each other. Very competitive, very, aggressive. And Kamala just doesn't have that likability factor. She's a Hillary. And so, I'd like to see how this plays out. There'll be a little bit interesting. There'll be a debate between Kamala and Trump, and then, we'll see. But I don't think she's electable. She's just not likable enough. Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to say. The three things we've learned, and we've learned a lot, but The one is there's no apparatus in place to get rid of a president that's senile. The second one is it's okay to have a president that's senile, that's viewed as something like, okay, we can have that, so there's no real president because they're handling the guy, so it doesn't matter whether he's senile or not. If you can have a senile president, if you have any person in a position of power where they're senile, that means that other people are doing doing the work, and he's just a figurehead, right? And so the third thing is they don't care about what the American people see, right? So I got this New York Post stuff. I got a few articles, and today's again Wednesday, July 3rd, and I'm going to be going through this as this unfolds. I'll probably release this on the 5th, as I said, hopefully earlier in this video. But it's the dam is broken, as one person said, multiple people said, and there's all these people calling for Biden to withdraw. And it isn't because the American people think he's senile. I mean, that's the reason that they're saying it's because he is, right? Because they've been covering it up, and the cover up is obvious. And so they are willing to gaslight the American people, hide this from the American people, deceive them. One of my viewers wrote this just now. I want to switch gears a little bit here, and the person said here, let me pull the comment up here. So glad Paul is now supporting Trump with 5 hearts. The person said he doesn't support Trump. He said many times. I think Paul points out flaws of both sides equally. There's a lot to be pointed out. You're dead wrong, boy. I myself am a Trump supporter, and I can tell you he wants Trump to win because he's always been bashing Biden and Democrats. Yeah, that's just like, how can you watch this video? Like the videos I say that I think Trump being elected is probably worse. It's hard to say, like, I mean, it's both, like, there's no reversing this, but Trump's a nightmare. And so, again, this isn't anything to do with Trump. Like, everyone wants to make everything about Trump. This is the first time this is something specifically to do with Biden and the Democrats. And that is that they are saying that somebody said fish boy, right? And so that's, them saying that they don't care what the American people think up until the point that now they have to, and they don't care how much they have to deceive you. And now they're only acknowledging the truth that Biden has dementia, and it's been going on for years. And there's just all these reports. You'll hear about him getting angry in briefings, losing it. It's not only are the other politicians, senators, House of Representative members, media personalities, and all these people saying Biden should withdraw, but people inside his inner circle that deal with him are now telling stories of things that they covered up. So they knew that this guy was senile, and they were a party to it, but now the dam is broken, and they're all going, yeah, we all knew he was senile. And so this tells you everything you need to know about Washington, D.C. and politics, and the Republicans are not better. They did the same thing with Reagan years ago. And they have their own Trump issues, right? I mean, look at all the leaks that have come out about Trump. And, these people let these things go on until Trump burned them and then they turned on him. But, this is how it is, right? People are self-serving. And even though both these guys are an existential threat to humanity, and of course they're puppets and, these things are controlled, but at least as figureheads they are, and that Biden was a senile president, they didn't say anything. Where were all the whistleblowers that are now coming forward? Where were they when it really mattered, right? And they're going to allow this guy to be president now until he gets, tossed from office in January. Either Kamala or someone from his side wins, or Biden or Trump wins. But either way, they're going to wait till January to make this a reality. And so just think about how effed up this whole thing is. I mean, and the Democrats, sure, I'm covering them now, but Trump's an absolute disaster and nightmare and not a good person. And just, I can't say who was going to be worse based in the effects that person will have, but I know that Trump it's going to be way worse in his first term, and his first term sucked. And look at all they rolled out. And these are the things they rolled out. They changed the definition of gender in all these ways that, the liberal media would push that forward. They invented the Black Lives Matter and Antifa and had these riots. They pushed through all kinds of liberal agenda and social agenda that Trump let happen. And then they did the COVID thing, worked them on COVID. And then they got from that the closing down of the economy, which has done devastating effects, which happened under Trump. And then Trump was responsible for Operation Warp Speed and the vax. And Trump and all the censorship and things that happened with social media when Trump was president. And the rise of the QBs and all those dopey groups. I mean, Trump had a disastrous effect on our country, and not just in terms of policy, but in terms of its effect on, what American life became and what reality became, because the hatred of Trump was used as a weapon to push this agenda forward. And it's going to be way worse the second time. And so, you think you win something, but you're not. It makes no difference. The person's not listening to me, the videos, to just responding to the title or watch 2 minutes and saying I'm supporting Trump because I'm hammering Biden, because you're a binary fuck and you don't, you got to get out of that, right? If anything, when Trump said I did not have sex with a porn star, which is a lie, but this is, you watch these debate. I mean, Trump wasn't great. He wasn't even good. He's horrible. And, because that was his best performance. And so, it's a mess. And there's no left or right. There's no Democrat or Republican. It's just, there's no real president, and none of these things matter. What matters is the way that they use these things to manipulate people to move in one direction or another and change the way that you live your life. And the way that we're going is in a demonic and immoral direction that can only lead to the destruction of the world, and hopefully something will happen to our system before then. I mean, we're on a disastrous course, and either candidate isn't going to prevent that. There's no one out there that's going to prevent America from collapsing, and then all the things that go with it, right? And when it collapses, it's not going to go down with some, in some passive, nature-friendly, God-friendly way. It's going to, do all kinds of damage to, the planet and everything else. And so, this is a big moment of the Democrats getting caught failing, but that doesn't mean Trump is good. Just because Biden's bad, Trump, it's just stupid. I don't, why do I even have to say things like this? Why can't you just see it? Why do you need somebody to tell you these things, right? Why can't you see that it's both sides suck? What's your need that you're willing to ignore all the suckiness that Trump brings to the table just because, you need to have some false hope or something? It's just what the Biden people are doing, right? It's the same thing that the Biden people, I may be some issues with my microphone here, but I just saw the lights flash, which means it's the signal, the Bluetooth, whatever. That the Biden people are 25% of them, of the country, are saying that Biden is fit to be a president, mentally fit. And come on, right? And you Trumpers are the same way. You're oblivious to how bad Trump is and refuse to see it, right? And it shouldn't be me saying this. It should be something that's obvious to everybody, right? Can't we move beyond this, that level that you think that there's a hero or a person that, it's not there. It's not going to be there. Anyways, let's get into the articles about Biden's team turning on him. Okay, so then this happened.
Biden will meet with a number of Democratic governors tomorrow. According to multiple sources, they sought the meeting to discuss their concerns in the wake of the debate, which he blamed tonight on fatigue from overseas travel.
We'll show that. We'll show that in a second.
New reporting in the New York Times, this wasn't a one-off. The headline in the Times, Biden's lapses are increasingly common, according to some of those in the room. Joining us now is David Sanger, who shares a byline on the New York Times.
So they've been able to keep leaks from inside his White House. So they are sabotaging him, right? They're trying to get rid of him. CNN and MSNBC are finally saying the things, and, the other news networks. Fox was obviously saying this before. But they're saying things that we all do before. They realize this guy can't do it. They have to get rid of him. And they scheduled a debate before he was the nominee, which almost never happens. They had an early debate. They usually don't have debates this early. And so because of that, right, they're getting rid of him, right? They're openly getting rid of him. But they're not getting rid of him as president. And so this whole thing is effed up. He's going to be president after he admits that he's too senile to run. He's not going to step down. The best thing for him to do was to step down right now. But he's not doing that, and there doesn't seem to be any call for that or apparatus in place maybe some Republicans, but they're not doing that. And so, like, this is really bad. Okay, so I'm editing, and I got breaking news coming up because he just said no. We'll get into that as the day develops. But as we go through this, they're all trying to push him to get out. There was no leaks before in his White House. Like, they weren't leaking things disparaging to him. And now they're saying, you're going to hear all the things they're saying about him. All of a sudden, they have all these people talking shit about him, right? And so let's finish this thing up here first.
Peace. Also seen at Jamie Gangale with her own new reporting.
Jamie Gangale.
Joining us as well is Michael LaRosa, former special assistant to President Biden and press secretary to the First Lady. So, Jamie, you heard Congressman Doggett calling the president to step aside. What are you hearing from your Democratic sources about where others in the party stand?
Anderson, I think it's fair to say the dam is breaking. Top Democratic Party leaders, this includes former and present administration officials, as well as major party donors, are now saying out loud what we've been hearing privately.
So you're saying out loud?
For days, that after what was a disastrous debate performance, they want President Biden to step aside for the good of the party and the country. They do not think this was a one-off event or just...
Because it wasn't. We've seen it over and over again. And there's compilations out there. And people are watching them now, maybe more, but people have seen him for a while. Like, everyone knows he's old and senile. The majority of people. Like, there's 25% of the people don't want to acknowledge this one way or another. Whatever. They don't have the capacity to look at him and say, oh, that's the senile MF right there. And so, like, the dam's breaking.
A bad night, and they think the stakes are too high, and that, frankly, he would lose to Donald Trump.
They're more worried about the election losing to Donald Trump than about what's going to happen in the next 8 months with a senile president. And so this is the other piece. So this is part two. I just remembered part two. So part one was there's no apparatus to get rid of a guy who's senile. Part two is that they're admitting that he's not really the president, right? If part one is there, if there's no apparatus to get rid of a senile president, then part two is it doesn't matter because he's not really the president. These are the admissions that are happening, which is great for me because I've said this over the years. It's just a puppet position, for all of us in the truth community who don't vote and don't really engage with the political process because we know it's just all performative. Because if you can have a senile president, which they've had in Reagan for 2 years and Biden now for 4 years, where they can, hide him away, that means that he isn't acting as president, right? Because if you're hiding him away, he can't be making decisions.
David, we mentioned that tonight President Biden has blamed poor performance in the debate on his busy travel schedule in the weeks.
Okay, let's go to that.
Out front tonight, the breaking news. Biden speaking out. The president just addressing donors, offering an explanation for why he performed so poorly at CNN's presidential debate, blaming his travel schedule, saying he almost fell asleep on stage. Biden isn't...
I almost fell asleep on stage. I was so tired because 33 hours before the debate, we didn't get enough 33 hours rest before the debate because I was flying around on my private jet called Air Force One that has beds in it where you can lay down and sleep. And I was meeting with foreign leaders, which is, kind of an anomaly because it's not my job to do that, right?
The only one trying to do a little damage control tonight. Here's Vice President Kamala Harris in a new interview with CBS News.
Joe Biden is our nominee. We beat Trump once, and we're going to beat him again. Period.
Are you ready to lead the country if necessary?
I am proud to be Joe Biden's running mate.
Well, for the first time, a Democrat in Congress is now publicly calling on the president to step aside. In a statement, Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas writing, I represent the heart of a congressional district once represented by Lyndon Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson, that creep, that MFer.
Under very different circumstances, he made the painful decision to withdraw. President Biden should do the same. And it turns out he's not alone. In just a moment, I'll speak with a Democrat who's running for Congress and is also urging Biden to withdraw from the race. All of this as questions about his ability to serve are growing louder. CNN spoke with more than 24 Democratic officials, donors, and allies of the president, many of them telling CNN they have made up their minds and they believe the president should quit his campaign, some even pushing for a decision to be made this week. And here,
there was one guy that came on and said they could have a quick primary. Zogby, I think it was the polling guy, that they could have a primary in the next 3 weeks. They primary, I guess, multiple states having multiple elections, primary elections, so it goes in and whoever wins the primary is the nominee, which, makes it look like people actually voted. Okay, so this is a few things from New York Post. Dems scramble to stop Manchin from breaking with Biden as White House aides freak the F out after train wreck debate. Senator Joe Manchin had planned to publicly call on President Biden to step aside after last week's train wreck, but top Democrats got wind and convinced him not to, as a growing number of White House officials say they are freaking the F out, according to reports. This is, nominated a senile guy, right? There's another one. White House staffers reportedly scared shitless of erratic Biden tiptoe around isolated president during briefings. Not a pleasant person to be around. There's one here that came up on my phone. Let me see if I can find that as well. First, let's read this. Some White House staffers have been forced to tiptoe around President Biden when briefing him on certain topics because they want to avoid eliciting his wrath, the anger. They're scared shitless of him in a new report. It's like you can't include that will set him off. A senior administration told Politico, referring to how some 81-year-old president aides feel they have to walk through a minefield during a briefing to avoid getting him angry because he's got dementia, right? It's a Rorschach test, not a briefing, because he is not a pleasant person to be around when he's being briefed. It's very difficult, and people are scared shitless of him. Doesn't take advice from anyone other than his few top aides. Becomes a perfect storm because he just gets more and more isolated in his efforts to control it. They had another one. Let me see if I can find that one. This is 25 House Democrats. 25 House Democrats reportedly preparing to call for Biden to end re-election effort. The dam has broken. We heard that woman say that. Is Joe Biden a 10 to 4 p.m. president? New details emerge on how the White House has been active in shielding the president. Is Joe Biden a 10 to 4 p.m. president? The U.S. is seen to be absent-minded, and clear cognitive decline seems to be visible beyond these hours, according to a report by Axios. Many of the people noticed that the cognitive decline in recent years, especially after the first presidential debate, while many in the White House have been dealing with this issue since the past few years. The White House team has rubbished many of the reports mentioning the incumbent president's declining cognitive abilities. This report comes at a time when the YouGov survey has found that 72% of respondents said that Biden should not contest the upcoming U.S. presidential election in November. The cognitive decline in these things, right? And so it's just all there, right? They're acknowledging these things now. And, the dam's broken. Like, it's just, because you see it. Like, once you see it, and you can't unsee it, and it doesn't get better, right?
We begin with breaking news. CNN is learning that President Biden has privately acknowledged the next stretch of days are critical to deciding whether he can stay in the race. It's a major development after the president's debate performance raised serious concerns about his ability to win re-election and serve out another term.
Okay, so there's going to be breaking news about 3 or 4 hours later where he basically denies all of this right here.
Just hours from now, the president will meet face-to-face with Democratic governors seeking reassurance. Biden will also speak separately with several congressional leaders. CNN's MJ Lee joins us now live from the White House. MJ, we should point out we're about to hear from Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. What are you hearing about where President Biden stands in all of this now?
Boris, what we have learned is that President Biden has privately acknowledged that he knows the next stretch of days are going to be absolutely critical to whether he can save his candidacy, and that he knows what would eventually prompt him potentially to say, it's just not working. This is according to an ally who spoke directly with the president yesterday, and that ally tells me that he sees the moment and he is clear-eyed, and that the president knows that there is a potential set of scenarios, things that could happen in the coming days and weeks.
So the leaks are questionable. Some of the leaks seem to be people saying that he's miserable to be around when you're walking on tiptoes around him because he snaps your head off, right? Scared boopless. But this one where the person says he's clear-eyed, they repeat that over and over again. They keep on saying he's clear-eyed. He was not clear-eyed. His eyes will no longer ever be clear. He is, got dementia eyes, right? So this is a talking point because they're repeating it as a talking point.
Where he would acknowledge essentially that this simply cannot be fixed. And they said that this looks like the polls are plummeting, the fundraising is drying up, and the interviews are going badly. He's not oblivious, is what this ally told me. And this person, interestingly, described the president in this conversation yesterday as having been chastened, that he blamed himself, not his staff, for his poor debate performance last week, and that he said, I have done too much foreign policy. There was a reference to the fact that he had traveled to France, traveled to Italy right before that debate, and the exhaustion and the jet lag had just been detrimental to his performance, though we should quickly note the president was back in the States for nearly 2 weeks before he took that debate stage. But
So Mika said it was 33 hours. He was only back for 33 hours, which clearly wasn't the case because he was back for 10 days. And the jet lag, come on, 10 days, that's a long jet lag for 10 days. Just, I've gone on long trips to India, multiple trips, flying in the air 36 hours, and not on a private jet, not an Air Force One, which is, of course, better because you can lie down, you can get comfortable. It's a totally different trip, right? And he's flying in a much more direct capacity than multiple. I had a 12-hour layover with my family in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, and they cranked up the AC. I had brought a winter hat with me, I just had it in my backpack, and we took turns using it because we were all freezing. They had this AC set down to 60, 50, 60 degrees or something because they had so much energy money there. 12-hour layover, it's hard, right? He's on a luxury private jet that flies there directly, right? Probably lands at military bases or wherever it is, right? So there's no extra time.
Boris, I can't emphasize enough just how much level of scrutiny there is now going to be on President Biden whenever he is doing anything.
And it just keeps on getting worse for Biden.
Really live for us at the White House. MJ, thanks so much. Let's turn now to CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny. And Jeff, you have new reporting that privately a growing number of Democrats want Biden to drop out of the race, some as early as this week.
Boris, there has been a really growing swell of sentiment that it is time to move on with this. We've heard a bit of it publicly from Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas, and many others behind the scenes are saying a similar thing, that it is time, yes, they respect and appreciate the president's record, but it is also time to really see what is going on here. Now, the president, we are told in his campaign, both Jeff Zients, the White House Chief of Staff, as MJ was saying, and the campaign manager, they're hosting separate staff calls and trying to urge people to stay focused. Hard to stay focused, though, of course, on this when there are these growing calls.
So this is about an hour before he says he ain't stepping down, right? So it's getting worse, right? The dam keeps on opening up more and more.
The most important meeting of the day, that lunch that is going on right now with the president and the vice president, and that meeting of governors this evening. Democratic governors flying to Washington, virtually all of them, all of the main ones, some of them who could be considered also candidates to meet with the president. So you get the sense, the feeling that so much has changed in 24 hours. Patience is wearing very thin, and time is running out to make something of a move. However, it is still Biden's decision to make. So as MJ was saying, I'm told privately, he has said that he does not want to drag down the Democratic ticket, but has not yet reached the point of making a decision.
Yeah, time is of the essence when making this kind of decision. There's actually a new poll out today, Jeff, from CBS News after the debate that shows a majority of voters think that the president should not run Walk us through those numbers.
Look, and that is some of the data that they are looking at. Of course, the president and his campaign team are looking closer at battleground data from those 7 battleground states. But look at these national numbers here. Do you think Joe Biden should be running for re-election as president? 69% say no. That's nearly 7 in 10 voters.
So then about an hour later, there was all this stuff about, it was breaking news. Biden ain't frickin' withdrawing. And so let's get to that here. It's July 3rd. It's around 5 o'clock here. And around 2 o'clock, this happened. As we move forward with this story.
For strong conversations, that's something that the president told me and my team directly moments ago. He was walking around and we happened to see the president and he said they were strong conversation. And by the way, he looks great. The vice president's great and they are ready to continue.
The vice president looks great. Why would she not? Like, she has dementia too? Like, what?
You working on behalf of the American people.
Thank you, Corinne. Hi. Is President Biden considering stepping down?
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe, directly from the campaign as well.
Given the groundswell of concern from...
Okay, so he's not even considering stepping down. He's not considering. It's not even an option. It's not. Why would I do that? So there's this.
Fellow Democrats, from donors, from supporters. Doesn't he owe it to the American public to reflect on whether he should step down?
I mean, look, very much into Sung-Min's question and my answer to her question where he had an opportunity to talk to supporters. He's done it a couple times at this point and laid out what happened on that night. Talked about how he understands, and it was not his best night. He understands that.
This isn't like he had a bad night. He looked like he had dementia. Well, he has dementia. And it was obvious to pretty much everybody.
Fair for people to ask that question. But we cannot forget his record and what he's been able to do.
His record has nothing to do with whether he has dementia or not. Come on, Pumpkin.
We cannot forget how he has been able to deliver for the American people for almost 4 years. That matters too. And
it does not matter at all. That matters not at all. If somebody has dementia, it doesn't matter. If you're a great driver and you have had a clean, no accident, no speeding tickets, no violations, professional driver, professional pilot, right? Great pilot, war hero, clean record, flew for Delta for 30 years, and then you have dementia, you're done. Like dementia and, these kind of things, they're career enders, right? And he's a president, right?
He has the most historic record administration, the most in modern politics. And
it sounds like what thing Trump would say, right?
That should matter. And
it should matter. It should matter.
Continue to do that work. And, a lot of what's on his agenda is very much popular with majority of the American people, whether it's continuing to build a strong economic...
Okay, so she's just hard to listen to. But then before that, the first question, this happened.
When it comes to creating jobs, building new roads and building bridges and so much more. And so the president certainly looks forward to meeting with them. And with that, I am happy to take your questions. Sung-Min.
Last night at the fundraiser, the president blamed jet lag for his debate performance, but he was back stateside for well over a week. So does he really need more than a week?
So it turns out 10 days.
He's going to have to recover from traveling in Europe, and is that really what he thinks?
So this is going to be echoed by, they're all turning on him, right?
Cause his poor people.
So, yeah, just a couple of things, and I do appreciate the question because the president has certainly spoken to this many, many times about the debate, and so he had an opportunity to do that in front of supporters, and as you just stated, he did that. He owned that the debate was not his best night, and he said himself, it's not an excuse, but it's an explanation. I was standing here yesterday, and many people were asking why and what's the explanation, and that's what you heard from him. Look, the two, I think, in addition to the two major trips, he was also continued to do his presidential duties. He worked late in doing that, and he also prepared for the debate. And on top of that, there was Obviously, the jet lag, as you just asked about.
The jet lag.
So he had a cold. And you all heard directly, you heard from him during the debate. He had a hoarse voice. Many of you reached out to me and my team and some other members of the White House asking what was going on. We confirmed that he had a cold. And so I think those two things, continuing obviously to do his duties as Commander-in-Chief, as the President. And so I think some of you here in this room can certainly relate. Who can relate?
No, it was dementia. See, there's no other explanation but dementia, because he's had these moments over and over again. This isn't like a one-off. People are saying he's had dementia now for about, we've been saying it since 2019, and people have been saying it for 3 years, and he's been breaking down, tripping on. This is not new, right? He's old, and he sucks at, he wasn't great beforehand. He wasn't some spectacular guy. He wasn't. He's always been horrible.
What could happen when you're having an important moment and you're not feeling well, and also you wish you could have done better. And so he took ownership. I think that's important, and he's going to continue to make a strong case for his agenda, and that's what you're going.
Okay, so there's that. That was what led up to her saying that he's not even considering dropping out. And then he got savaged by CNN. I didn't see what MSNBC was doing, but CNN alone was savaging their response here.
It was a bad night, plus he had this cold. A lot of talk about this cold. And what is also interesting, we just spoke a little bit about it, was that he has not seen a doctor since the debate. He's not been checked out. He's not been checked out by a specialist, nor has that occurred since his physical in February.
So they're calling BS on his excuses. That's Breonna Keeler, who did the 2015 hit piece on Joe Biden when they wanted Hillary to run. Remember, I showed you that 2 videos ago. And I've showed that in numerous videos where she called him a groper and a liar and a gaffe magnet. And that was in 2015 when Hillary was running. And, they were even hinting that he was just getting old then. And so, episodes, people could have episodes, right? People could have seizures. People could have, episodes of dementia. And foods might play a part in health and travel. These things all might play a part. But the episodes are things that signal that you have a condition. And he's had multiple episodes of dementia, and they've been hiding him. His staff has said they've been hiding him, that he only works half a day. We've seen him. They hit him the whole 2020 election cycle, and then since then as president. And so CNN is calling BS. And that means that CNN, these guys just don't do this on their own. Let me show you more of this.
Yeah, it seems the White House was trying to have it both ways, saying that it's just a cold, so he shouldn't see a doctor, but the cold was so bad that clearly it affected his ability to form coherent sentences at points during the debate. We have CNN senior White House correspondent MJ Lee with us at the White House, as well as CNN Capitol Hill reporter Annie Grayer. MJ, first to you. You actually brought up the point about the president's medical records and when the last time it was that he had a physical, and you asked about that question of jet lag of Karine Jean-Pierre, because during yesterday's briefing it didn't come up, and then it appeared today.
Yeah, I have to tell you, this was another very tough White House press briefing for the White House press secretary. Just a barrage of continued questions about the president's political future, but also the concerns about his age and his health. And you're right, she did tell me that the president has not had any medical exam since his last annual physical back in February. And when we were pressing her on why not more transparency, why not more information, bring his doctor out to take questions, release more information, more full information from that last annual physical, she continued defending the White House's conduct, saying they have been thorough in the information they have released. They said the idea of Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the president's doctor, coming to the podium to take questions, that isn't the norm. We are obviously not in normal times right now. And then there were numerous questions that were posed to the White House press secretary about the president's new explanation
for why he performed so poorly at last week's debate. The fatigue, the jet lag. He had pointed to the 2 foreign trips that he had made to Europe right before the debate, even though we should note that there were some 12 days after he got back from Italy for the G7 until the moment he took the debate stage. There was no good answer for why the president is suggesting that he might have been still fatigued and still jet lagged from a trip that he had arrived back from some nearly 2 weeks before the debate. And also just on the question of why we only heard that explanation last night when he spoke at a fundraiser, including at the White House briefing yesterday. Karine Jean-Pierre didn't give us that as an explanation. She kept talking about the cold, and her answer was basically, that was my bad. I was so focused on talking about the cold that she didn't mention the fatigue and jet lag as an answer. Now, just on the future of the president's campaign and his re-election bid, the White House, just like the campaign, is continuing to say the president isn't going to go anywhere. He is going to stay in. We, of course, have heard the president reported on the president telling this to his campaign staff. He said earlier, I am running, I am the nominee of the Democratic Party. No one is pushing me out. And I had this interesting exchange with the White House press secretary, pointing her back to comments that the president had made as a candidate back in 2020 when he referred to himself as the transition candidate. Take a listen to that. Okay, so I guess we don't have that sound, but...
So they're all savaging him, right? And CNN reporters don't go after Biden like this unless they've been told to do it, right? They don't give their own opinions. They don't look at what they're seeing. They have scripted lines. We've seen it over and over again. They're told what they can say and what they can't say. And they're going after him like we haven't seen. And they're calling bullshit left and right. And his big talking point after the debate, their big talking point, was that Trump lies. And Trump lied throughout the debate. But now they're saying Biden's lying and he's being selfish, right? He's not putting America first. And so it's a nightmare. Like, it's a nightmare for him because CNN's bailed on him. I'm sure MSNBC is similar to this. And then Fox, of course, and these other, whatever they are, I mean, they're all going to be saying this. And they're going to be saying he has dementia because that's what he has. He has dementia. And there's no other explanation for this. These things are contributing factors, but their story isn't, the problem, which I said before, these are all part of his job, traveling, whatever it is. And so if he's going to have that kind of a meltdown from doing his job, then he can't do his job. And so there's no excuses here, right? And, they're going after him. And then this happened.
But certainly reach out to us and we'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that is the end of the White House press briefing. Karine Jean-Pierre asked, is Biden considering stepping down? Absolutely not, is what she said there.
President Biden is staying in the race, at least according to Karine Jean-Pierre. She says that Biden directly says that reports that he's evaluating any exit from the race are, quote, absolutely false. She went on to say that on a staff call held earlier today, according to sources, the president and vice president were on that call. He said, I'm in this race to the end. She also elaborated on the idea that part of his less than stellar performance on Thursday was due to jet lag and a cold, but she says the president is as sharp as ever.
And she was asked if he has been looked at by his doctor, even though the doctor traveled with him. She said no. We know, of course, he had a physical back in February. So many questions I think reporters would like to ask Dr. O'Connor, but she said it's not the norm to bring the doctor to the podium. Of course, we are not in a normal place right now with the questions surrounding President Biden.
They're setting in on him right away. They're calling bullshit like in real time. They're not waiting a day or two. I mean, they're dropping the press conference and calling BS, right? Let's go back to this relate piece here.
Some of you here in this room can certainly relate.
So that's logic. Some of you old-time viewers will remember. I used to use this meme a lot. I used to use a lot more memes, and I like to do that. I just forget about them. And so something happened where something came up about Logic, the rapper. I don't even know what it was. But I was like, oh, didn't I have a meme for him? And I couldn't remember what it was. Like, I remember it was something like that, but I couldn't remember specifically what it was. And then I was just editing, and she said, "You guys can relate." And I'm like, "Oh." I mean, I literally thought about this yesterday. You know, this is one of those synchronicities and things that I considered part of a plan. So I went and grabbed it. I had the meme saved, but I guess it got deleted or something. But, you know, there it is.
Some of you here in this room can certainly relate.
Let's go to CNN's Arlette Saenz, who is live outside of the White House. Arlette?
Well, Brianna, I think that you guys covered a lot of those top lines from this briefing, but the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre really insisted that President Biden plans on remaining in this race, even as there are so many questions about his candidacy swirling. She said that the president personally disputed a report that suggested he is weighing dropping out of the race. And the president, we're told, and vice president both called in to an all-staff campaign call earlier this afternoon, where he insisted that he would stay into this race until the end. According to a source who was on the call, the president said, quote, "I am running. I'm the nominee of the Democratic Party. No one's pushing me out. I'm not leaving. I'm in this race to the end, and we're going to win because when Democrats unite, we always win." Now,
so nobody's pushing him out. And going back to that woman said before, I missed that to comment. And I want to comment about all this stuff at the end here. But when that woman said that she was a transitional candidate, meaning he didn't expect that he just was a placeholder for like somebody great to come along, right? And they're now saying, like, I'm going to show you a clip coming up. I don't have the clip, I don't want to show you that clip, but the woman says he's the greatest president in terms of what he's been able to get done. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff because, that's their view, the Democrats, that he's been able to pass so much legislation, but I mean, he's been a disaster, just like Trump was in his way. But let's just finish this part up here.
part of what the White House is trying to do and president's trying to do both privately and publicly is really try to reassure voters, but also top Democratic allies that he is staying in the race and that he is up for a second term. This comes as you have started to see some cracks within the Democratic support for the president. At least one Democratic congressman has called for President Biden to step aside.
So again, I'm going to comment all this on the other side of this. I just want to show you all these clips. So this was Jake Tapper. This is the woman from California who said that in her lifetime, no one's got as much done as Biden. He's the greatest president in her lifetime. She's like 50, right? But then what she said after was more interesting.
Not the first time that I, as a journalist, have covered an aging lawmaker whose problems are not necessarily being disclosed in a transparent fashion, surrounded by staffers who are not necessarily being upfront. This happens. I haven't seen it happen with the presidency, but it happens all the time. Do you think that's part of the problem here?
Look, yes, this is a systematic problem, and I don't think we should lose sight of that in all of the difficult circumstances and difficult decisions about how we're going to beat President Trump. This is a problem in Washington. And some of the same people now who are saying, oh, he needs to be tested. It's legitimate that people have questions. We heard Speaker Pelosi say that. There are legitimate questions people have. Some of these same people were saying that there's no problem with Senator Feinstein. Nobody should question whether Senator Feinstein, toward the very end of her term, was fit to do the job. And so I think there's a credibility gap then created. I think Washington needs to be more transparent and hold itself more accountable. Don't be afraid of American voters. That's how you don't win, being afraid of losing. You win by putting yourself out there, by engaging again and again and again with all different kinds of Americans and all different kinds of audiences. That hasn't been.
So Biden has given a big FU to his party and everybody else, because the longer he delays, the worse it is for the person coming in after him. The harder it's going to be to beat Trump. The more this is a disgrace, and it's turned into it's already a disgrace, but to the average person, the American people finally figured out Joe Biden was mentally incompetent last January, and they didn't do anything. And again, this is supposed to be the party of the people, all this stuff, all the things that Joe Biden says. This is the kind of stuff Trump pulls. And Biden's been like, the only reason I'm running is so I can stop this maniac, and I'm the guy to stop him. But now that's not the case. And everyone say it's not the case. You're hurting the party. You're hurting the country. and you're hurting the credibility of your party, and everyone's got to lie. Kamala's lying for him, like, gaslighting people, just coming out and saying these, all the stuff that they're saying, when everyone's looking at him going, no matter what their excuse is, this MNF is senile, and it's just going to get worse. He shouldn't be president now. But they don't have any apparatus to get rid of him. It's a systemic problem. And she talked about Feinstein, right? Remember Feinstein, like they brought her in one time and they said, just say I. And she came in and said I. And her eye was actually bulging out. Say yay or nay or whatever they were doing. And her eye was bulging out of her head. She looked horrible. And she died with $120 million worth of assets because, she'd been a senator forever and she'd been corrupt. But there's just all these candidates that have done this in the past. All these politicians who had dementia, and they just can't get rid of them. There's no term limits, and they don't want to give up power. He's in a small state like Kentucky, but he has seniority, and he's in charge of all these committees and does a lot of stuff for his state, so no one wants him to leave, and they keep on voting him back in. But we've seen this over and over again with senators, and look at Nancy Pelosi, Fire Marshal Schill. Trump is sucky. It isn't like he's innocent, and it's easy for him to spin these kind of things because of how bad the Democrats are. But everything they accuse Trump of, being self-serving, being a narcissist, which he is, being all about himself, this is what they're doing. They fleece the American people. They use inside information to line their bank accounts. They stay too long and get addicted to the power of Washington, D.C. and the privileges. There's mandatory retirement ages in so many different professions. And then there are things that you just age out of, professional sports, things like that, physical things, that you can no longer do the work as you get older. And these politicians can stay as long as they want, and they're supposed to have all this power in terms of, political power and all the rest of it, influence American people. And they're able to stay on long after they're senile. It's happened time and time again. It happened to a couple presidents and so many senators and congressmen and Supreme Court justices. And they just won't give it up, right? They just won't retire. And Joe Biden, who was never supposed to be somebody who's like a rock star, a self-called transitional president, he's been told by the American people and all of his party, practically all of his party, he needs to pack it in. And, the problem with this, which I say all the time, is it's only going to get worse. It doesn't get better with age, right? And so anything you're seeing now is going to be a continuous problem, and he should be fired right this moment. And the people around him who have hid this away, right, are completely complicit, right? Like it's, it's so bad. Instead of hiding this and covering up for him, they should be out there saying, look, this guy's senile. There should be whistleblowers. There should be people saying this guy, what's going on behind closed doors, this guy's unfit to lead, right? But instead, they're doing everything in their power to block the truth from coming out. And then accuse Trump of lying, right? It's the worst of all possible worlds. And, like I said, the longer he delays, the worse it is for the person that takes over. They're going to get him out of there unless he just says F you. Maybe he just says F you. I don't care. This is my thing. Because once he says, I'll retire, he's done. Like, they'll put him on some, he won't be seen again. I guess, as president until January. But, it's going to be bad. And, anything that he does in terms of campaigning, like let's say they give it to Kamala and he continues to campaign for her. They might say, don't do that. But every gaffe he does, everything that he does is a reminder of the lies and the manipulation the Democratic Party engaged in. And so this is just wonderful. It's great to see CNN turning on him. I'm sure MSNBC is doing some of the same thing. But who's to say? Anyways, I'll wait to see what happens the next couple of days. I'm not going to put this up tomorrow on the 4th. There won't be much news about this, probably less news on the 4th. People won't be watching the news anyway. And then this will open up back up on the 5th, and we'll see if he ends up caving and retiring for withdrawing his candidacy. We'll see. But they want to get it done this week, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But either way, it's hilarious. Okay, so today's Friday, July 5th. I'm glad I waited to put the rest of this video out. So there's been a little bit of news, two things to get to here. And that is Joe Biden did see a doctor, right? And so there's lying. There's lying going on, which is, of course, never a good thing. And, you know, the mainstream media of CNN and MSNBC and the liberal media has turned on him. And so there are a few things to do with that. The first one is that for years they have dismissed his gaffes and his senior moments. And so for Joe Biden to save his candidacy, he's got to go out and have these impromptu moments, which he can't have without doing a senior, you know, having one of these, dementia moments. DementiaGate is what I'm now calling it. So every time he does something, it's going to be scrutinized. And so he can't, you know, we know that he does gaffes even before he had dementia. And we know he has issues speaking. He has issues walking. So every time he stumbles, every time he trips, every time he babbles on, you know, loses his train of thought, they're going to cover it. And it's just going to reinforce the fact that he can't do it. So he's got to withdraw. There's just no other option. It's how they handle Kamala, which becomes the other issue, right? And that's a whole thing in itself. Right? Because, there's whatever's going on with her, and whether they continue to cover this negatively, we know that the Trump will and the Fox News will, that they covered this up for years because he had all these signs of dementia and it finally bit him in the ass. You know, I mean, it was undeniable. The third thing is they're talking about him. I don't know how much I have in terms of video clips here. I don't want to put too much in, but I watched a bunch of video yesterday of these Democrats talking about him like he is the greatest president that's ever lived. And I don't know if it's just because he's running for re-election and they're spinning that hard, or they actually think that his legislative achievements, the bills that he's passed, they talk about him turning COVID around, which is a joke. But they talk about him in terms that he was did a masterful job of passing bills and things like this. But they're trying to say that the big talking point is that his performance is exceeds his 90 minutes of a bad debate. That his 3 years of presidency was so great. And that if he didn't have these senior moments, he would be a shoo-in. And that, remains to be seen because I don't think the American people necessarily agree with that. I don't know about his legislative achievements. I haven't been paying attention to that. In terms of any kind of legislation he's passed or the stuff that he's affected. Certainly, we know about COVID. That was the Democrats that baited Trump. Trump fell for it and ended up closing down the economy because of them, working Trump they just worked him on all these things. But anyways, let's get into it here. There's just a lot of good video here. But, they're in a bad position because he has had senior moments and he can't, not have them. And so, he's done. There's no, he can't perform, right? They're asking something of him that he's never been able to do, and that is not be douchey and not be not make mistakes and gaffes and, not be who he is, right?
Business as usual.
Yeah, this has been the worst week in a presidential campaign that I can remember in my lifetime. Not only did he have the debate debacle, but the effort to clean it up has been miserable at best. You hear the arguments for why he didn't do well at the debate, that he had a cold, that he was traveling in Europe. He'd been back in the United States for 12 days. I don't think any American thinks that they want a president that is home for 12 days from a foreign trip and still not quite himself from the jet lag. So, the White House messaging has been difficult, and indeed yesterday, as you pointed out, At one moment, Karine Jean-Pierre said he hadn't been checked out by a doctor. Then Biden said he had been checked out by a doctor. One of those things is true. One of them is not. Right now, his White House has a credibility problem. He has a credibility problem. And they need to make sure that whatever they're saying is actually true and transparent. He is going to try over the course of the next several days to show a different version of himself.
A different version of himself, right? So what about the other version coming back? Like he has multiple personalities? Like this is just, oh, that's his dementia side, but he really can, you can't trust the guy, right? Because that's the side's coming back, right? What you saw in the debate stage is coming back. That ain't gone. It's just going to get worse.
Your sense of your sources and what you're hearing. We just had Raul Grijalva, the second member of Congress, to come out and say, step aside. Are your sources telling you, are you hearing that we might get more actually over this weekend?
Well, Richard, I think that remains to be seen. One thing is clear. We are now a week out from that debate performance that everyone agrees was not President Joe Biden's best moment by any stretch. And the concern that kicked off among Democrats has been sustained. And now that we've had a number of, two lawmakers from his own party coming forward, publicly calling for the president to step aside, that is conversation that is trending the wrong direction. And that's something the White House, the campaign clearly see and are taking note of. I will point out, I spoke with Congressman Lloyd Doggett last night, who was, as you noted, the first to come forward from within the party and ask Mr. Biden to step aside. And he also underscored this idea that it wasn't just about the 90 minutes on that stage last week. For him, he said there's been concern looking at the numbers over the last year. Those are numbers that have not largely budged. We know.
This is the numbers. This guy's saying, well, I've been looking at the poll numbers. And the poll numbers are saying people are realizing he finally has dementia. So it isn't just about the debate. Well, you'd think that there would be somebody that would say this. I mean, I will, but I mean someone in the news media. That he has had dementia for a number of years. Like, I saw it, we all saw it in 2019. And like those moments he was having on the campaign trail and the way they handled and managed him. And now there's all these stories coming out from the inside his administration and these people dealing with him. That somebody would have said the president has dementia or Joe Biden has dementia, like in the media and the people around him back when he was running for president in 2019, because somebody's showing these kind of, he was showing these kind of lapses in, consciousness for the last 5 years. And, that it would be like there would be somebody in this whole, in the media, in the, like the left media, his administration, that would realize this was unsustainable. It was going to come around and embarrass all of them, right? Like they're trying to make it like how bad he's deteriorated in the last 4 years so that they can excuse what they, did in the beginning, that they didn't nip this in the bud. Like he wasn't so great like you had to have the guy. I mean, he was, whatever reason they forced him on the American people, there's that. And so they now have an issue where they're saying, well, the people have finally realized that the polls are saying this. Well, what about you guys looking at him and saying he has dementia? Either you don't have the ability to judge somebody, to see something that's so obvious that the guy was breaking down mentally, and that was only going to get worse as he got older, and that you would speak up and do the right thing and not wait till this happened, right? So the Democratic Party should be done. Unfortunately for the Republicans, they have Trump, who's a disaster in terms of his own credibility and, all of these things, right? Like I was thinking about Trump, just popped into my mind when he said grab him by the bonus hole, that he could just walk up to women and grab them by the bonus hole. Like that's, like the level of entitlement, the level of, disrespect to women, all these things about that moment. But I was thinking about, like, he did that just to impress Billy Bush, right? Like this clown on Entertainment Tonight is a member of the Bush family. He said these things just to impress him. Like, just goofy things, right? The whole Stormy Daniels saying they didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels when he did. Like, Trump is just a lying piece of crap, which people know about. He's not trustworthy. And, maybe the Trumpers don't, but everyone else does. And so, the Trumpers think, well, how could Biden get this many votes? Well, Trump is that bad where he's provoked the left and, people. And he acts in a way that, he doesn't have any credibility either. And so, like, this is a great moment in our history because of these.
Voters have really been locked in terms of who they're supporting for almost a year now. It's been a tight race, and Mr. Biden has been slipping in some key battleground states in particular. He wanted to underscore that was what's feeding his concern, and he said that concern is widespread among other Democrats as well. When I asked him why we haven't heard more people come out publicly to share it then, he said, look, not every Democrat feels as well positioned as he is. Mm-hmm. He himself is 77 years old. He's later in his career. He said younger Democrats who may be in vulnerable positions this fall don't feel as emboldened. I'll also point out I've talked to Democratic lawmakers who want to stress Biden is their guy. This conversation they feel is divisive and is undermining him. And they say if the Republicans can get behind their candidate, it's time for Democrats to do the same. They worry the longer this goes on, not only is it not enough time for a new candidate to introduce him or herself to the country, it also further emboldens the man that they say that they are focused on beating, and that is Donald Trump.
Susan, as Amna intimates here.
But, CNN and MSNBC have turned on Biden. Here's the big moment here.
That Donald Trump could win. And if the Republicans are going to take over the Senate, the House is the last force that can potentially stop Donald Trump. So I understand why the Democrats are really concerned. I'd also be concerned because where they made a lot of their inroads in 2022 were in blue states where turnout is generally lower in off years. They're relying on a huge presidential turnout to get that Democratic vote up and get their candidates elected. And Biden is not necessarily the person who's going to bring that enthusiasm to the race. And what I've seen lately is
Yeah, neither is Kamala. They don't have, I don't know how. It's a short period of time. She only has a couple of months. But when American people took a look at Kamala before, they rejected her. And so we'll get into that. But this is what I've been saying all along in terms of they need a lot more votes. Like, Trump has his Trump lovers and people are going to vote for him. But he's capped off at about, 48% of Americans will consider voting for him and 52% will. And I don't know if that number has changed, but there's a lot of never Trumpers out there, people who could never vote for Donald Trump. And so they got to suppress the vote in some way, right? But it's only a few thousand votes here in a few states that make the difference. Like, all this other stuff is meaningless. There's like 5 battleground states that are, they could go either way. And Biden is already going to lose a couple of those. And so it's really about, this is, you're looking at like a Trump second term, which I pretty much feel like is a disaster. But, so is a Biden second term. And so is a Kamala first term. So, there's nowhere to go here. Like, it's not like this is going to, it's just going to be how the end looks like, right? Like, it's coming to an end. It's just a matter of how it looks like, depending on the candidate that becomes president. There'll be variations in the ending, but the end is nigh.
The issue of his seeing a doctor or not after the debate, I think that is the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, because that's something the American public really doesn't want to see in their president. It's one thing to say, okay, he had a cold, but to look like you're trying to hide your medical records. And after that performance, it wasn't the debate. It wasn't 90 minutes. It was what Americans thought all along, what they've seen all along with Donald Trump, with Joe Biden, that he's too old, that he doesn't look that great. This debate confirmed that, and the crisis management afterwards was just horrible.
Yeah, now they're talking about what they've dealt with afterwards, which is to hide him away, because they have no choice. Here's just one last thing here.
side of the debate they fall on right now. Every Democratic lawmaker I've spoken to agrees on one thing, that the next few days in particular are going to be crucial. Lloyd Doggett said to me last night, this is something that has to be resolved in just the next days. We know the president has a key interview on Friday. He's campaigning over the weekend. There's the NATO summit next week. And I think what everyone seems to agree on is that for the president to calm those concerns right now, he needs to be seen in more unscripted moments, more interviews, taking questions in a town hall format, speaking directly to voters. Those are the kinds of moments people seem to think could turn.
He can't do that. Like, he's not going to be able to pull those moments off. We know that. Like, we've seen the gaffes, and they're inevitable. And he's already had a few. Like, we'll get into that. Like, he's had some moments that are bad, and they're just going to get worse, right? They have no choice but to hide him away, because if they let him loose, you know what's going to happen.
Along with Julie Rudzinski, a Democratic strategist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices. Douglas Brinkley is a presidential historian, and Matt Gorman served as senior communications advisor to
Look at Matt Gorman, Jeb.
Senator Tim Scott's presidential campaign, and was an aide to both Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney.
So you're a loser.
Heard. And before we make any decisions as a party about who should succeed Joe Biden, were he to get out, I think it's very important to make sure that that cohort, the backbone of our party, is heard. Whether they want Kamala Harris or they want somebody else is a different story, but I think that's a voice that's very important. I will also say this, the time for the Hamlet routine from the White House is over. It's not enough for the president to be able to talk to just governors or talk to...
Okay, so this is just being echoed, but the name of this video is called Kamala Harris is a story right now. And I don't need one of these dopes to say this because we just can, go off the headline. They don't want her to be the story. Like, the story has to always have to been Donald Trump. The story is always about how bad Donald Trump is. That's what the Democrats are doing for the last 5 years. We can't have Trump. Trump is a disaster. As soon as the story became about Joe Biden, everything's collapsed. And his dementia. That was the first moment, the debate, where Trump had to take a back seat to Biden's performance. Because, and I talked about this earlier. And so as soon as Kamala Harris becomes the story, it's like, well, she's Kamala Harris, right? She sucks. Boom, he's running. You ain't running, you're like, you're stumbling. He's screwed up. That's their talking point. But to say he screwed up, that wasn't screwing up. That wasn't like one bad moment, one disastrous statement. Like he said, a racial slur. He said something, bad. It was 90 minutes of dementia, right? Boom. You're covering up for a guy that's senile, and that if the American people had a pulse, and they don't, whatever the different demographics, there's truthers and there's all the sheeple, all the people, and there's all these groups. But just being gaslighted and lied to, and it's just they're used to this, right? But how upset they should be because of what they've been, lied to about here. Like, just his walk. Like, you're going to scrutinize everything about him, the way he looks here. Look at him. He just walked through there like a zombie. See, Trump only has 49%. That's the problem. He can't get above 50. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Like, just Trump just has to be not a douche. He just has to not be douchey. You know, sitting there golfing when America's falling apart, maybe they're trying to show him he's got a MAGA written on his T-shirt. Like, he's just such a douche. 47. He's got 47. You know, all you have to do is just stand back and let the story be about Joe Biden, and then let it be about Kamala Harris and the Democrats lying, because she's a part of those lies, and she's lying to the American people right now. You just got to let that be the story. But Trump can't help himself. He just can't help himself. Hit a new rock bottom. Like, you got a dementia candidate that you put out there. Look at this guy rocking the. Look at his eyes here. Boom. That's this demonic moment. He's rocking a 4th of July tie. In it to win it. Okay, so we know that's not going to happen.
The stakes of this race could not be higher.
Boom, that's their thing. Another talking point.
It turns out perhaps they could be, particularly for Vice President Kamala Harris.
That's right.
That's right. She's so bad.
Those chants.
I mean, she's just so horrible. But that doesn't mean she couldn't win. Because, Trump.
4 more years, suddenly ringing a bit differently for a vice president at the center of a.
See, this bust of JFK is like really ghoulish.
Crisis consuming the White House and President Biden's re-election campaign. As the Democratic chorus grows louder for Biden to step aside a week after his fumbling debate performance, Harris is at the center of it all, playing the role of loyal running mate.
Joe Biden is our nominee. We beat Trump once, and we're going to beat him again. Period.
Even as
she's so happy. Like, she's starting to glow with her, this is her moment.
Privately considers whether she'll soon have to pick one of her own if Biden passes the Democratic torch 4 months before Election Day.
I mean, he just can't walk.
But that remains a big if, with signs of a Biden-Harris ticket suddenly not so obvious after all.
Biden and Harris obviously is the.
Harris is in something of a historic holding pattern, leading the charge in defending the president moments after the debate to Anderson.
I got the point that you're making about a 1.5-hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
A careful balancing act of proving loyalty, yet trying to maintain credibility.
It's just how long American people and how much they take a look at Kamala Harris. And, it'd be interesting because she's really unlikable. And she has some history, knee pads. So these things, the way she got to where she is.
Her future is at the heart of a conversation among Democrats, where respect may run deeper than consensus over the party's next steps.
I think she's a talented woman and someone who should be in the mix. But this,
this is whatever. This was one of his moments of unscripted, whatever it is.
I remember as a Catholic kid growing up in an area where we didn't like Catholics didn't get elected. I'm the first president to get elected statewide in the state of Delaware when I was a kid. Well, I looked at John Kennedy and said, well, he got elected. Why can't I get elected? By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president. I'm proud to the first black woman in the Supreme Court.
So I think he was trying to say he was the first person to have the first black woman as a vice president. But the way it came out was he's proud to be the first president. Well, let's see that again. It's not clear what he's saying.
Served with a black president. He got elected. Why can't I get elected? By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president.
The first vice president, the first black woman. And so he didn't say that I would have proud to have the first vice president black woman. He said that he was a black woman, right? Like that's how it came out. We know what he's trying to say here. But again, this is the kind of moments, unscripted moments that they're like, what the hell is he saying here? There's another one. So he came outside here. And this is how he performed.
You got me, man. I'm not
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere, all right?
going anywhere. All right. Woo! All right, I'll come back out when they open the gate, okay? Thank you. One last thing. I used to think when I was a senator, there were always congestion on the highways. There's no congestion anymore.
There's none. There's no congestion.
None. Regarding the highway, there's no congestion. And so the way they get me to stop talking, they'll say, we just shut down all the roads, Mr. President. You're going to lose all the votes if you don't get in. But anyway, I'll be back out. And by the way, I've been all over the world with you. I've been in and out of battles anyway.
All right, so that's him being a douche, right? Like him not being able to... that's not being a douche. That's him not being able to, hold his thoughts together. Like he's just, if you're looking at it, you can't unsee it. That's the issue, right? Like he's, that guy. Like this is who he is, right? This is what he's done. So for me, and people in the truth community or people mocking Joe Biden comedians like this, these groups of people, certainly the Republicans and the Trumpers. They're looking for gaffes. They're looking for moments where he's senile and have been for a while. But the Democrats and the media and all these people are looking to dismiss these things, right? Oh, these are just him being him, whatever. I'll show you the thing with Jake Tapper coming up. But when you're looking for them, you see them, right? It's just like anything else. If you're looking for something, you'll see it, especially when you believe something. Like if you're freaked out about Trump and you want to find any way possible that Trump won't win presidency, Trump won't be the president, you're freaked out about, the second term for Trump, you'll find ways to make Joe Biden better than he is. You'll find ways to deny what you're seeing, right? The same thing with Trumpers. Like when Trumpers see what a nightmare Trump is, they'll find ways to dismiss it. And, even to the point where Trumpers will talk about Trump like he's a messiah, the same way the Democrats are talking about Joe Biden like he's the greatest president in modern history. Like just going over the top, right? But when you're looking for it, and now everybody's looking for gaffes, everyone's looking for senior moments, and he's going to deliver them because he does. He just will. He can't help but do that, right? So he's screwed because he can't have a clean performance. He's incapable of a clean performance. So this was the morning of the 4th of July. We're going to get to Anna Navarro because she's like a real treasure here. But this guy who was in that Sacha Baron Cohen thing, he got duped. He's a Republican. And they're bringing a lot more Republicans on now, which shows you that they really want to get rid of Biden.
What's everyone still waiting for?
Him, Allison.
They're waiting for Joe Biden. Look, Julie's right. Look, think about this. That debate was a week ago. A week ago. The fact that Joe Biden hasn't been out taking questions from the media, taking questions from voters, unscripted for 90 minutes, a couple hours. The fact that he hasn't done that in the past 7 days, man, that's a much bigger fail than his performance at the debate. Biden has always had one test in this campaign. Is he too old? That's all the American people have been concerned about with Joe Biden. If he could get over that, he would beat Donald Trump. He didn't do that. And again, it's...
So, you know, I debate that too. We'll see what happens. You know, I mean, I'll debate it. I just, you know, don't necessarily agree with that. Like, there's no way to tell. But then Anna Navarro, she...
Joe, on a practical... Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
She just interrupts because she's like crazy like that.
About data. I think the key question that Stephanopoulos, I hope, asks, and that I think a lot of us want answered is, was this a one-off or do you have a condition? Do you have a medical diagnosis that the American people should know about? Or how do you explain what happened last?
Are you seriously asking that question? We know this is a condition. He's demonstrated this for 5 freaking years. You don't need it. He's not going to answer that question. He's not going to say I have a condition. They've hidden this stuff, right?
Thursday. Give us that. And if not, I'll tell you what the other data point will be. The clock. The calendar, right?
The clock. You got a clock. She's, you know, she's on The View, and she's like probably the stupidest person on The View, right? Which is, you know, they have basically a stupid off there.
I mean, the Republican convention's in 2 weeks. The Democratic convention is in 6 weeks. So the time is running out to make these changes. There's a lot of procedural, legal, FEC issues that have to be sorted out if you're talking about changing a candidate. This is not like changing a boyfriend in high school.
that kind of, I mean, this way that she just cuts through all the BS.
This entails an enormous amount of things that need to get done. And I don't think people are thinking about that. There's ballots being printed. There's primaries that have happened. Different states have different regulations.
So she, Anna Navarro's like a character Jennifer Lopez would play in some romantic comedy where she's like the straight talking nanny to some executive, news executive somewhere. And he keeps on using her talking points on the news, and then he gets busted, and then she comes out and she's on the news, and they put her on the news, and she's just, you know, this working class woman who talks straight to the American public, right? Like, it's just so bad. Like, it's just, you know, the whole thing's such a joke. Okay, so this is from this morning. This is, you know, July 5th. Morning Joe, Democrats better get this right.
During a meeting with Democratic governors on Wednesday, President Biden suggested he might start limiting events after 8 p.m. so he can get more sleep. One source tells NBC News the president was asked about his health, and he said that he was doing fine, adding, quote, "It's just my brain." The governors took that as a joke, as did Biden campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon. When she was asked about the remark, she said Biden was clearly making a joke.
Are you serious? Because this was Trump. Right? Clearly making a joke. He's joking about the condition of his brain. Like, that's not, you know, funny. I mean, it's funny for us, but it's not something where he can do that right now, right? When everyone's talking about the condition of his brain.
Adding that he also said, all kidding aside,
start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
And in the Wisconsin interview that aired yesterday, President Biden acknowledged that he had a poor debate performance, but defended his candidacy.
I had a bad night.
Right, we heard this already.
I didn't have a good debate. That's 90.
And there's panic. No doubt there's panic all around. I said 8 days ago that the president needed to consider getting out. Said that we needed to give it time, needed to see what was going to happen. And I think we're still there. I mean, it is July the 5th. This happened 8 days ago, and decision time is not upon us yet.
Yeah, every day is a nail in the coffin of your Democratic Party.
And though it may be coming soon, I think we should first honor a man who was first on the ballot 54 years ago by giving him the time and the space to make his decision before we tell him that we've made ours.
What are you talking about? The guy's got dementia, and this idea that he's just not going to run is still like mind-boggling. It's not mind-boggling because they suck so bad. There's no apparatus for this, which I talked about before, to get rid of them. But this guy should not be president. Like the way he displayed himself, and the fact that he can't go out. Everyone's calling for him to go out and have these, moments, unscripted moments, and he can't do it. He's being hidden away. So he had this bad night and showed that he had dementia, and then they hid him away for 8 days, which shows that he has dementia. Because if he didn't, they would display how great he is. And you guys should all have been covering that he has dementia. And there's no sentimentality here. The world's at stake here. Let's give him some time. He's been such a great career politician. What the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Governors, in which we know that the president was asked whether he checked in with a doctor after his poor performance at last week's debate, given that the Biden team is linking that poor performance to a cold they say he was suffering from. And sources in that meeting are telling NBC News that the president said he did check in with a doctor after that. He said that the doctor said everything was fine. And as you mentioned, that contradicts what we heard from White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre just hours before that meeting with the governor, in which she said that the president had not checked in and had not had any check-ins or appointments with his doctors since his physical in February that the public gets a readout and a summary of. But now the White House is trying to clean this up and trying to clarify this. They're saying that the president hasn't had a physical since February, but that he has seen doctors for brief check-ins since then, including after the debate. That clarification, though, still not explaining the press secretary flatly denying the fact that the president had seen a doctor. And Ali, this is really coming in the face of this cleanup, this damage control we're seeing from the Biden team trying to dispel these growing concerns about his fitness to be able to continue running for re-election, Ali.
It shows you just how goofy the whole media is. Now they're finally turning on Biden, but they're talking about things they didn't talk about before, and they want to get rid of them, and then they'll talk about how great Kamala Harris is or whatever it is, whoever they pick. But the fact of the matter is, he had such a disastrous performance that was the cap of, the climax of years of showing signs of dementia. And the American people, again, they're all concerned about the poll numbers, but it's whether he has dementia or not. If he has dementia, then you can't allow this to happen. You got to be like, oh my God, he has dementia. We can't have this guy be president, right? And you have to get rid of him. You have to do what's best for America, not because you're loyal to Biden, or you're loyal to your party, or you're a media person, right? But when he had these disastrous performance, they needed a flawless, to make the case that this is just a one-off and he's totally capable. He came out fired up at that North Carolina. Where they had what looked like a paid infomercial audience screaming at Joe Biden. They didn't look like real audience members. They were so enthusiastic. And then they've hidden him away, and he's having private meetings, and everyone's saying he's got to be out there. And then it comes out talk to his doctor. If it was a medical issue, he had to see a doctor after that. He had a mental breakdown, and the doctor, they have a team doctor traveling with him because he's old. They're worried about his health all the time. Just in general, and particularly for him, for any president, but particularly for him because he's, he could go any moment, right? And so with all these things, you mess up that story, you're not even keeping your story straight, and you can't have that, and it should be over, but they just won't let it be over. So then there's Jake Tapper here. So this is from 3 days ago. Jake Tapper calls BS on this guy's trying to spin this thing.
Has a bad night. And I think that was a weak debate performance. I don't think anyone in the campaign is disagreeing with that point. But I've been urging, and I expect that this will be moving forward, for the president to reassure folks in the media, the general public, the many editorialists, and others who've expressed concern by doing unscripted, casual engagements with journalists, with small groups of voters, a town.
Everyone keeps on saying that. These are talking points. He's going to have a gaffe. He will. Like he's going to have just moments where he's babbling. Like anything he does now is under a microscope, like I said.
Paul, so that you can see what I've seen with our president in the last few months and, of course, the last few years. He is engaging. He is capable. He has an incredible record as president. I don't think you would dispute that, Jake. But the core question is whether what you saw in those few moments of the debate and over much of the arc of that 90-minute debate was someone having a difficult night or someone who is no longer up to the job. As he said on the stage in North Carolina, he wouldn't be running if he weren't confident he's up for the job.
So with all due respect, it is not honest to say that this is...
You're lying. You're lying.
...is just one night. There have been moments like this that people have seen in front of the cameras and other moments with cameras not there. Just 2 weeks ago, let me just show this clip. There was another moment like this, not just a senior losing a train of thought, but something else going on. Here he is. It was in an event about immigration. He tries to introduce DHS Secretary Mayorkas, and there's some sort of glitch. I don't know what it is. Let's roll that tape.
Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way. But all kidding aside, Secretary Mayorkas.
I don't know what that was.
That doesn't trouble me at all, Jake.
So those are going to happen. Like he's done because that's what he does. He's been doing that for years now. They just haven't paid attention to it, or they haven't, they've covered it up. They've covered it up.
Frankly, you can put up a dozen clips of me, of you, of anybody who's on TV who speaks publicly all the time, losing their train of thought, misstating who they're about to introduce, not having a fluid moment. And if we're honest with each other.
Come on, that's not, we know there's something else going on here. So from the same day, CNN isn't showing this. They're not showing a lot of these things. I've caught clips that I've watched on TV with my phone that don't make it to the internet. A lot of the disparaging clips that CNN reporters are saying, things that they're saying. But Jake Tapper said this, and CNN didn't put it up, but Fox caught it, and they put it up with a little background music.
There is a discernible pattern of Democratic officials seemingly trying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw and what you heard with your eyes and with your ears on Thursday night.
So the thing is that I think this is at least in part scripted because, like I said earlier, the news media has very limited things that they can say. And they've been covering up for Biden and, not showing you a lot of stuff. Covering up, dismissing things that you see. Tapper was doing that. They were all doing that. They were dismissing things you saw about Joe Biden having dementia. And they were also not showing you other things, right? And again, Trump is just everywhere. Everything that Trump does, especially the bad things, are put out there. And they're all over Trump, everything about Trump. But they haven't covered Joe Biden. They haven't covered Hunter Biden. All these things. Then all of a sudden, they're all about it. They're bringing Republicans on there, to comment and things, which they wouldn't do before. And they are slamming the guy. They want to get rid of him, but they suck at it. They're horrible at it. They just, and to get rid of him, you have to call into question what the Democratic leadership and what the media has done all this time to cover up for Deflategate. Because this is this is a huge scandal. You had a president who was having senior moments, and it's you can't have any. You just can't. You can't have these breakdowns because one, they're going to be more, and two, he's got a supposedly a powerful position. But like I said before, I guess the four things, I don't know if I can remember them all, but the first one is that we don't have a legitimate president because they would get rid of him immediately because they're acknowledging he has dementia. The second one is that they've covered this up for, whatever period of time they've known for a while, and they all decided not to acknowledge what the American people were seeing. And then when the American people saw it, they decided to run him anyway and screw you. And now they're basically saying, yeah, he has dementia, but he's still better than Trump, and Trump's a liar. And so, they've done all these things. And, there was one thing that should have happened is Joe Biden should have been fired. Joe Biden should be removed from being president. I mean, there should be no debate about, it was only 90 minutes or, this is, well, we know what this is. He's senile, right? He's, he's on his way to where he can't even hold together a thought, right? Where he's gone, Bruce Willis, right? There's moments, Bruce Willis has been in movies and he has full out dementia. He's been in movies, but they get him to repeat a line. And he's like, I showed you this in a video. I found a recent movie of his, and you can just see he's just reading lines with a blank stare. He doesn't know what he's talking about, I'm sure he's not even aware he's acting. And so, they can get you to do that, and then you have these moments. Some moments are better than others. This is how all these things go. But it just gets worse and worse, and, you lose things and don't recover them, and you lose abilities, and, this is happening to everybody as you get older. I mean, this is just old age, and Joe Biden sucked before he was old. No reason to keep him around. He doesn't deserve any more respect than anybody else. As a president, probably less respect. And you just get rid of him, and you roll the dice with Kamala Harris. But they're butchering this whole thing. They're just so bad at it, right? And it's not like this means that Trump's great, because Trump's a nightmare. And, their whole thing is, it's just a mess. The whole country's a mess. And this is what happens when you're in apocalyptic times, right? In any moment, there could be something big that happens, and we don't have leadership that we trust and media that we trust. And I mean, not just truthers, but everybody. And so I'm going to wrap this one up here, but you can just see it's all there, right? It's all right there. The disrespect for the American people, the disrespect for everybody. It's not just the gaslighting, but you're mentally incompetent. But of course, you look at most of the people out there walking around with, eating these toxic foods. You have all these truthers, and I've been talking about this, who eat carcinogens and drink alcohol all the time or whatever, use drugs and use things that are bad for them, but then say they want the truth. Well, you can't even clean up your own life, right? And so that's why they can get away with it, because everyone's just living bad lives, right? Everyone's even if they claim they want truth, they only want truth that means that they don't have to change their lifestyle, and they don't have to give up certain things, and they want to make it about other people changing. And so that's why we are where we are. We're at the end of our time. This is the end of our system, and what comes next will be a lot harder. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.